Hey YouTube! Okay, good morning YouTube. So this is part 2 of our adoption series, and I think this is going to be a 4-part series. Thank you for all the wonderful comments on part 1. This is kind of our meats and potatoes part 2. It's about the actual process of adopting and all the tons and tons and tons of paperwork that you go through with the process.
And there's a lot of information with this one, so go get your notepad and a pencil. You're going to need it.
But if you are going to adopt, this is a must for you guys. You must watch this video because it's basically going to show you about the 6-month journey that we went on when we decided to adopt. So as we ended the last video, we found TLC, which is the adoption agency we used to adopt our kids. And we met an incredible woman there named Denise, and it was our first meeting. I'll let you, Brian, tell you about it a little bit.
Right. So we had gotten in touch with TLC through A Better Way in Oakland, and the first person we contacted there was Denise Miney, who's the director. And we had our first interview with her, and she was a wonderful lady who put us at ease right from the get-go. And we went in there scared and having no idea what to expect.
And I could go on for hours and hours talking about Denise because she's incredible. Yeah. I mean, there's, when there's genuine people that you meet in life that just, they spew goodness, and she's one of those people that
she spews goodness.
She spews goodness. But I can imagine all the wonderful kids that she's put in wonderful homes because she's truly an angel. She's an amazing.
They all are. They were all good people, and that's what you're looking for when you walk into an adoption agency that's going to represent you.
You need to find somebody who you get that feeling from. If you don't get that feeling from the person you first meet, then that's not the agency for you.
Because you're looking not only to adopt a kid, you're looking for somebody to advocate for you as a gay person or a gay couple. So it's important that you be comfortable with them and that they be on your side. Really.
So when that meeting with Denise was incredible. When we left that meeting, we were like 2 giddy little schoolgirls. And we were like, yes, it's going to happen. I mean, we left her office knowing that this was going to happen. But
it was a huge task that we had no idea how to even begin. And when this happened successfully, it was like, this is really going to happen.
She gave us a wall this big of tasks we had to jump over. But
that was easy.
We could definitely see the light.
So in that, we left very excited. She did give us a huge task list. The first thing we need to do is address everybody living in our home. And the first thing we had to do about that was have everybody fingerprinted and have a background check done.
It's part of a criminal check to make sure that there's no, that we're not criminals, that we're not pedophiles, that we're not people who've been convicted of crimes in any state or, any country in the world. It's a full criminal background on you.
And it's not a fun process, but it's not invasive either. It's about $20, took us about an hour to complete, and they referred us to the people who did it.
Well, that was a fingerprint process. That was about an hour to complete the fingerprints.
But we didn't have to find them on our own, even though we did pay out of pocket for that.
Yeah.
To do business with TLC, we did have to pay a $500 fee that is refunded when you complete adoption.
Yeah, but that fee is only for their expense and time. So it's basically TLC is a non-for-profit adoption agency. What that means is they get a lot of people that walk in the door thinking about adoption, but then they don't come back, or they make the social worker spend a lot of time researching them or going through the process with them, and then they end up not adopting.
And those poor people have enough to do without dealing with people who are window shopping.
Yeah, and so basically that fee covers their expenses, and once you finally adopt your children, then that fee is refunded to you.
And the reason why I brought it up is because there are a lot of other ways you can make adoption happen or surrogacy, and a lot of them are quite expensive. So this is what you'll be paying out of pocket at the get-go of this process. And every agency is going to have their own fees and their own way of dealing with that. This is just our experience. So we also had a financial and credit check done to make sure that we could support bringing a kid into our family.
Financially.
That was on our list of things to do before we did anything else. We had physicals done, complete physicals, to make sure that we were healthy.
Now this is something that we can't really, we can only clarify some, because the physicals are to make sure that you're, that you're healthy, but we don't know what would be a reason to be rejected. We're not sure if people who are HIV positive or people with cancer or people that are I'm not sure what would be a disease that would disqualify you.
I don't think it's a hard and fast rule. I really think it's up to the discretion of the social workers.
In case-by-case scenario.
Right. Because you might have a heart condition And it might be a problem for one agency and it's not a problem for another.
You might be HIV positive and you want to adopt little kids who are HIV positive, and there are tons of those kids in the system. And maybe that would be something that would be, I'm not sure.
And that's why it's really important that you be comfortable with your agency, that they're going to advocate for you.
And they're going to ask you those tough questions. They're not just going to lead you on.
Because they will go into your closet and they will find what you have there.
Okay.
Okay. We had to take foster certification classes, and you have to have so many hours in those classes in order to achieve your certification. We actually drove down to the Marin area and we spent pretty much two all-day sessions down there to complete our hours. And there we watched videos detailing what life's like for kids in the foster system, what kind of issues you come up against, the type of abuse.
Did some role playing.
We did role playing with the other people in the class.
We got to meet some really cool teenagers that came in and talked about their experiences.
Yeah.
What it was to be adopted or be in foster homes.
What their feelings like are now that they're older and have gone through the process. That was encouraging. It was actually really great.
Yeah, it was good classes. I mean, all those classes were well worth the time.
Then we had to have CPR certification.
I didn't have to have that.
I had to have CPR and first aid certification.
He was so mad I didn't have to go.
Well,
the reason I didn't have to have CPR is because I'm in law enforcement and we are required twice a year to do full first aid and CPR courses at my work. So just in case I come across a scenario where I need to administer CPR in my profession, and believe me, it is a skill you need. Selena one time choked on a marble here, and that training that I received was, it was...
He got in there, scooped it out, and
did CPR,
we all had a good cry.
Saved her butt because, she cried. But that is experience that even if you're not going to adopt or be foster parents, you should take. CPR and first aid.
Yeah. And, okay. Then came paperwork. Mounds and mounds of paperwork.
Oh, hold on. Okay, I'm back. I just wanted to give you guys, a little small example. All this paperwork is a small...
This is just on the kids.
Yeah, this is just the kids. This doesn't include ours. But that's a small portion of all the paperwork that we had to fill out during the adoption process.
So we each got psychological profiles that we had to fill out that would become the basis for our home study. And it covers questions like our family background, how we were raised, how we were disciplined as kids, how we handle arguments together as a couple, past relationships, any history of alcoholism or abuse.
Basically they're taking your whole life, and it's probably what I say 12 to 15 page questionnaire that you have to write a paragraph on each of those questions. And they talked about my relationship with my father, just
why we want
everything.
to adopt.
Your sex life, what kind of sex life you have.
Not graphic. But
well, and some questions were, and I guess it would be, me and you are both pretty vanilla, so I don't know that maybe if our sex life wasn't as vanilla as it is, maybe the questions would have been more thorough. I don't know.
Well, vanilla means we didn't have to tell them we have a dungeon with a sling and
our sex life is pretty vanilla.
So
there wasn't. What happens is when you fill out these questionnaires and you're answering each of these important questions, they basically later on during the process there'll be things that they red flag, questions that they want further answers to. And this questionnaire is really important because it goes in front of a psychologist, and they get a chance to read through your questions and the way that you answered them, your personal relationships with friends and family, how you interact with each other, the way you deal with conflict and fights.
And it's not just for the adoptive parents, it's for anybody that's going to be living in the home where the child is placed.
My mom.
We had an issue where his mom was living with us, and we had to find a different place for her to live with her other son because of that background check.
Yeah.
But they're not going to just get adults. They're going to go for kids in the house too.
Yeah.
They want to know everything about everybody because it all contributes to the mix of how your family's going to be when you go through the adoptive process. And they want to make sure they're making a good match between you as a parent and the child that they're going to place with you. So they'll cover everything, and there is nothing that is out of bounds.
They ask everything. I guess that's what the conclusion of that is. This questionnaire is going to ask you every part of your life.
Including how you look in the future, to how you think your family is going to be, how you're all going to fit together, what your discipline styles will be, how you'll talk to your kids about religion.
What your biases are. I mean,
Yeah.
are you, do you have feelings of racial, maybe, I mean, everything. Your body, if let's say when you see a black person walk down the street and you get, scared. I mean, that's a simple thing. They'll ask you about that. And just because you feel that way doesn't mean you're disqualified. They want to further ask you, they want to see who you are as a person.
Right.
And I think it's really important that they know who they're placing children with.
Okay, and from that moment on, when we had finally finished that first task list that Denise had given
Which
us,
took months.
and well, it didn't take that long. But even though that list was a long list, that questionnaire and all the paperwork that we filled out and emailed back to them became the basis for our home study. And what happens during the home study is a social worker assigned to you, kind of as your advocate, comes in and talks about that psychological profile. So Susan, who was awesome, she came in, she sat down on our floor, right? And it was like hanging out with another kid, a high school friend.
Locked herself in our bathroom, which is kind of strange.
Yeah, well, that's a whole nother story. But it was like meeting a friend who we hadn't seen in years, and it was the first time we met her.
Instant connection.
Yeah, she was a great person to get. At any rate, we sat down with her together at first, and then she took each one of us separately, and we talked about the profile, and we went through everything and had a personal discussion about the answers that we put down on it. And she also went through our home, stem to stern, to make sure that it was going to be kid-friendly, and gave us another task list of things to do to be ready for our foster certification. And
things to change.
We had to get all knives up off the counters, above where kids could get them, anything sharp.
All medications, bleaches, shampoos, everything. Things you would not even think would be dangerous to kids, we had to put into a locked closet.
We had a great fountain that we had in our
with
backyard.
Goldfish.
So if you have a pool or if you have a body of water or a fountain, you have to either fence it off
or empty it.
Completely.
And we had to get rid of our goldfish. We had probably, about 3 long-term goldfish that we had?
We had, even when the kids were placed with us, we had an inflatable swimming pool, and I left it out one day because I knew they were going to go in it the next day, and I got dinged for that.
Yeah.
You have to have a certain amount of food on hand for a certain number of days. Because a lot of these kids are coming from backgrounds where they really are foraging for their day-to-day existence. So making sure that you're able to provide for them, and they're not going to be put back in that position of lack, because that can trigger all kinds of psychological responses. They went through our closets to make sure that we didn't have medications and stuff in there. They don't go through your underwear drawer though, don't worry.
I do.
We had to have a first aid kit out prominently. We had to have a fire extinguisher.
We had to have escape routes.
Right. We had to have a disaster plan, which you should have anyway. Jay's mom had to move, unfortunately.
Yeah, my mom had to move out.
We had to prominently post our foster certification too. That was part of the process.
Because in California, when you do get a match, you become a foster parent for 6 months before you legally can adopt a child. Which means even if a child is placed with you in California as only adoption, your whole purpose is to adopt this child, and you're going through the process to adopt, you still have to be a foster parent for 6 months. It's kind of like a testing period. It's a way to make sure that the kid and you are bonding, the way to make sure that the home is working. You have a social worker come every week, which we'll talk about in the next video.
Social workers are different. That's why it's really important that when you're looking for your own social worker, that connection is there.
So this video, wrapping it up, because we don't want it to go over way too long, there's a lot of work that goes into getting qualified to be an adoptive parent. I mean, it took us 3 to 4 months just going through the process of classes and background checks and home studies and meetings with social workers and talking to people to actually get qualified to have children in our home. Now, it seems like a lot, but believe me guys, it is so worth it. I mean, your lives will change in ways that you never will believe.
And the month that you take to do it, gone. It happens so quickly when you break it down into little tiny pieces and do one thing at a time.
Because you're still living your life. You're busy doing your day-to-day routine, and it doesn't seem as overwhelming maybe as this video made it seem. So the adoption process for us was challenging sometimes, but I wouldn't change it. And I think the most important part is the social worker that you get. You have to be their friend. You have to be comfortable to share everything about your lives with the person that comes to your home, because she'll be coming on a weekly basis once kids are placed with you. And if you don't have that comfort level with her, if she's somebody you can't talk to, or he's somebody you can't talk to, then you need to get a different social worker before you even connect with kids. Because otherwise, you know, it could be so much more challenging just dealing with the connections that you're getting with your children when they're in your home.
Yeah, because they're going to have their own social work. The kids are going to have their own social worker that advocates for them, and you'll get visits from them as well.
Yeah.
So you want somebody on your side, you know?
So we hope we answered some of your questions, and I hope this laid out the timeline, you know, that the process, the steps that we went through. Please ask us questions if you have questions, because it's easier sometimes for us to answer them in the comment section than it is to try to make a video for every question we forgot.
Especially with a topic that has so much, you know, to talk about.
And that's why we decided this week to make the 3 or 4 videos this week, to just put the story out there and let people learn from it and hopefully grow from it. And you know, I know when we first started this process, it was really difficult, and we really didn't know where to start and where to look. So we want to encourage you guys to really follow up on adoption and, you know, foster care. Look into it and see if your life has a space for some kids.
Yep.
Okay, take care, you two.
Till next time.
They liked the kiss last time, so
Yeah.
Bye, guys.